Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle something huge, the incredibly complex world of U.S. import compliance. We're looking at the trade policies that are really going to shape 2026. So if you're an importer, listen up. This one's for you.
So let's just jump right in with a number that should honestly make every importer's jaw drop. 49%. No, that is not a typo. We're talking about the potential tariff ceiling for apparel imports, and this could be hitting as soon as July 2026.
Look, this isn't just some headline you can scroll past. This is a direct, and I mean direct, threat to your bottom line. So you've got to ask yourself, is my business ready for this? Are you ready for what's coming? All right, let's get into it.
So what we're looking at here is basically a perfect storm of trade challenges. It's not just one thing, it's a whole bunch of factors all swirling together. And it's all being driven by this ongoing America First trade policy, the one focused on bringing manufacturing back home and rebalancing global trade.
The administration is, they're using pretty much every tool in their toolbox to reshape global trade. You've got ongoing investigations like Section 301. That's the one targeting unfair trade practices. Then there's Section 232, which is all about national security risks. And if that's not enough, there's a huge review of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, the USMCA, coming up in July. The whole point of all this? A laser focus on securing our supply chains for really critical stuff, like car parts, semiconductors, and medical gear.
And you can see the real-world impact of all this right here. With all this uncertainty around tariffs, brands are scrambling to get their supply chains out of China. I mean, look at this. China's piece of the U.S. apparel pie has dropped below 20%. And who's picking up the slack? Vietnam. It's now the single biggest source for apparel coming into the U.S. That's a huge shift.
So what does all this uncertainty actually do? Well, it's causing chaos right now. We're seeing purchase orders just getting frozen. Production calendars for, say, the holiday season, they're getting squeezed like crazy. And the result is, it's inevitable, isn't it? Prices are going up. We're already seeing hikes of 6 to 11% on basic goods hitting shelves in the U.S.
Okay, so you're facing this storm. How on earth do you build a defense? Well, it starts with getting your own house in order. And that means creating your own compliance rulebook. Let's break down what that actually looks like.
All right, the bedrock, the absolute foundation of all U.S. import compliance comes down to two words: reasonable care. So what does that actually mean? It means that you, the importer, are the one who is legally on the hook for getting everything right. Every declaration you make to customs, it's all on you. The buck stops right there.
So how do you prove you're doing your due diligence? The single best way is with something called an Import Compliance Manual, or an ICM. Just think of it like your company's official playbook. It's the guide that keeps you on the right side of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP.
Now, an ICM can sound complicated, but it really boils down to 4 key pillars. You have to have a clear, documented process for each of these. 1. Verifying where your product was actually made. 2. Classifying it with the correct tariff code. 3. Confirming its true value. And 4. Keeping detailed records of everything for at least 5 years. Get these 4 right, and you're on solid ground.
Okay, so you've got your internal rulebook, but there's something else. For every single shipment that comes in by ocean, there is a time-sensitive, totally non-negotiable filing you have to make. And trust me, the deadline is strict and the penalties for messing it up are steep.
It's called the Importer Security Filing, or ISF for short. And as the name suggests, this is all about security. The whole idea is to give CBP a heads up, to give them a look at your cargo before it even gets loaded onto the boat.
You'll often hear people call it 10+2, and that's because the responsibility is split. The 10 is on you, the importer. You provide 10 pieces of information about the shipment. You know who the seller is, who the buyer is, what the product is. The +2 comes from the ocean carrier. They provide 2 data points about the container's physical location and status.
And here is the absolute crucial part, the deadline. This is where so many people trip up. It is not 24 hours before arrival in the U.S. It is 24 hours before the cargo is even loaded onto the ship at the foreign port. I'm going to say that again because it's that important. Missing that window is such a common and incredibly costly mistake.
So what happens if you blow the deadline or file with the wrong info? Well, the pain starts with a fine of at least $5,000 per violation. And on top of that, you're looking at your cargo getting held up, maybe even pulled for a full-blown exam. All of which, by the way, you have to pay for.
Okay, so now we know the rules of the game. Let's talk about how to play it. Let's talk strategy. How do you get ahead of this trade gauntlet, instead of just, reacting when things go wrong?
Here's your strategic playbook. First, run a tariff exposure audit.
You need to model what different duty scenarios will do to your costs. Second, diversify your sourcing. Seriously, even shifting 20% to a second country can be a huge risk reducer. Third, and this one's clever, look into tariff engineering. This is where you make small, totally legal changes to your product so it can be classified under a lower duty HTS code. And finally, take a hard look at your shipping terms, your Incoterms, and see if you can renegotiate them to shift that tariff liability.
Look, to get through this, you've got to change how you think. The old way, managing compliance with a bunch of spreadsheets and a million email chains, it's just too slow. It's way too risky. The new way is all about using modern platforms that can automate the screening, the classification, the filings. It lets your team focus on the exceptions, the real problems, instead of just drowning in data entry.
So, we've talked tariffs, we've talked rules, we've talked strategy. What's the bottom line here? What's the one thing you really need to take away from all this?
It's simple, really. Proactive compliance isn't just a cost of doing business anymore. It's a strategic advantage. In this environment, treating compliance as a core part of your strategy and not just some chore for the back office is what will separate the companies that win from the ones that get buried in penalties and delays.
As Benjamin Gordon from Cambridge Capital puts it, the right mix cuts rework, reduces holds, and gives your team defensible audit trails. It's all about building an operation that's resilient, that's efficient, and this is key, that's defensible. You want a system that can take a punch, that can handle these regulatory shocks, and just keep your supply chain moving no matter what the next policy announcement is.
And that's our explainer. So as you think about your own business, your own shipments, I'll leave you with this final question to chew on. Thanks for watching.